Well, hello and welcome to Influential Women. Today's special guest is Miss Amy Gasperetti. Welcome, Miss Amy.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I've been thinking about what to talk about, and I was a little, apprehensive at first, and then the more I thought about it, I'm like, there's so much to talk about. So,
right? Especially with us, because we've known each other for so long.
Yeah.
Like
And the busier we get, the less time we have to visit, so this will be nice.
I know, it's kind of just so nice girl time. I should have bought a bottle of wine and made a little wine day out of it.
Yeah, a little bit later in the day, we should have done that.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. What do you do in Pueblo community? I know how big of a deal you are, but tell me what you're doing and what you're up to now.
So currently I am employed at the Pueblo West Chamber of Commerce. Just started my 6th year there. I can't believe
wow.
Time has just flown by. But yeah, full-time there and just rocking and rolling, and it's busy.
Yeah, how is Pueblo West?
It's great. I am so excited about what the future holds for Pueblo West. We did our community guide last year to talk about all of the great things coming to Pueblo West. And of course, things have been a little bit delayed, but definitely still in the plans. Nothing has been canceled. We just fell off track a little bit, and now we get to get back on track for the building of the community. And, it's just, we focus on our community out there with the Pueblo West Chamber, but we definitely are involved in a lot of exciting things coming to Pueblo County at large. So I think the future's looking bright for Pueblo County.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm a resident of Pueblo West, and I love it out there. Within the last year of COVID, how was the Pueblo West Chamber? Did it have any fails and tribulations that went along with it? What was your year like?
Like many things in life, there were a lot of shifts and changes with COVID coming on, but we did not slow down a bit. If anything, we got busier. Because we had to definitely set aside some normal plans that we typically have, but we had to figure out how to help our businesses. And I kind of felt a personal responsibility, and maybe it's just the person that I am, to bring some joy to Pueblo West. I mean, people were very stressed and concerned and not knowing what was going on throughout the year, or not sure how it was going to impact them. And I just felt like it was our duty to continue to give them things to be happy about, to look forward to bring the community together. And in spite of any concerns and things that were happening in their lives, just to provide some family things to do. And so we had a great time with like the Halloween trunk or treat, and it was kind of a mess, to be honest. I mean, we had to shift. Everybody did trunk or treats. There was no, getting out and doing the typical games and bounce houses and things like that. And we had it staggered. Some of the organizations, a lot of churches, Parks and Rec, the fire department, we kind of had it staggered. So there were different organizations doing their trunk or treats at different times, but because there was nothing else to do, people were showing up early to some places. Some cases were like 2 hours early.
Oh my gosh.
And nobody complained a bit, though, Jenny. It was just so amazing when we got the reports from the churches. They were like, we just started calling people in and saying, hey, we have people, get here, bring more candy.
Oh, that's awesome.
So people were just excited to be a part of that. People were waiting in line for quite a while in some cases, but still everybody just reported back that the community, the families were just so grateful that they were out there and doing it and giving them something to bring their kids to. And then of course we did the Parade of Lights tour instead of Holiday and Lights is what it's called in Pueblo West. So we typically have the Holiday and Lights parade, for Christmas, and it's one of my favorite events, if not my very favorite event in Pueblo West, because typically we get to do the parade, and at the end of the parade, everybody comes down to Civic Center Park, and they get their cookies
with
and
Santa.
cocoa.
Yep, I love that with the kids.
Santa and Mrs. Claus are down there in their sleigh. They get to get up there. There's a bonfire that the firefighters do. A couple years ago, we started having somebody, the Swallows Charter Academy Choir, come over and lead Christmas carols, and they, do the tree lighting. And it's just, to me, it feels like a small community should feel. And it just is amazing to watch everybody just visit and sing. And so we weren't going to be able to do that. And Jackie Galley from Bank of the San Juans came up with an idea, and she said, why don't we, people always have their lights up, people go look at lights, why don't we do something a little more organized and have the Holiday and Lights tour so people know, where the lights are and everything. Like, we asked homes and businesses to register and get decorated and register with us so that we could kind of do a map and a listing of the homes and addresses that they could go see and the businesses. And we put together some prize packages, which you and Matt donated to. Thank you. But again, people were just so incredibly grateful. PJ's Coffee in Pueblo West and May's Cafe both stepped up and said, if we're going to do this 2 weekends, one each did a weekend, and they gave out hot chocolate to any families that came through during our tour times in the evenings there. I think together.
They had like hundreds of people go through their drive-through. It was crazy.
I think combined they gave out like over 1,200 cups of hot chocolate. So again, everybody is very grateful. The people that had decorated, a lot of them were out handing out, wrapped candy canes to people that were coming there and taking pictures. People were jumping out and taking pictures with some of the things. And the Horsemen's Association, some people from the Horsemen's Association decorated their horses and took their horses by some of the houses. So it just, that's what brings me joy, is to be able to collaborate with people with Pueblo West Metro in this case, and everybody who wanted to participate, and
that's
just
awesome.
bring some joy to the community. And so I felt like that was just really important last year to have that focus.
Absolutely. Well, and before the chamber, you were the coupon queen. And that's where I first met Amy Gasperetti, the coupon queen. So tell me a little bit about In Pueblo magazine and what you did prior to the chamber.
Yeah, so I think I had that for 5 or 6 years. And that was, we did a direct mail magazine. And I've always just had a heart to help locally owned and operated businesses. And I think that developed through my involvement with networking groups. I was a director for BNI, which was supposed to be a part-time gig, and sometimes I put more time and energy into that than my own business. But networking with other businesses and really connecting with them to help them grow, to help them, some of them to help them learn how to talk about their businesses and how to develop those relationships where there were mutual referral sources being built and very regular and just healthy business-oriented relationships. And in that, of course, you can't help but learn and understand and hear about the struggles that businesses have. And so ever since my involvement with that, I just have done everything that I can to help people understand business better, relationships better, how to have better relationships to build their businesses. And if I can be a small part of making somebody better, whether it's personally or professionally, then I'm good. Like, that's what I think that's what I need.
Volume to who you are, because you have such a big heart and you always want to give your time, give your efforts, and that's just who you are. So that doesn't surprise me. And that's a little bit kind of what we do at Wake Up too. Our goal is to help small businesses. So you and I have that in common, and I think that's why we get along so great. Yeah. But yeah, you're amazing. And before that, what did you dream of being growing up when you were a little girl?
Oh, when I was a little girl, gosh, this is going to date me, but I think the first dream that I remember, I wanted to sing and dance on the Love Boat.
I love it.
No, seriously, I loved to sing. I would lock myself in my bedroom and put on my record player. Again, dating me.
Do you have a good voice? Like, are you a good singer?
I used to be.
So yes,
yeah.
You're being a little humble, because I could tell you it's like nails on a chalkboard, but I love to sing. So
yeah. My daughter loves to sing, and
Miss Rachel.
Yeah.
Tell me about your kiddos.
So Rachel's my youngest. She's my only girl, and she's in theater, so we'll circle back to that. But I have Jesse, and he's in his mid-20s, and he works for FedEx. and great jobs, right? I mean, just great community jobs. I think he loves what he does. And then I've got Preston, who is in his first year at Otero Junior College, and he is, he was supposed to go there and play soccer. I don't know how much of that is actually happening right now, but he's kind of my mini in the sense that he does look, I mean, in boy form, of course, but he does look a lot like me, and
He does.
he has my personality. He's always been the type of kid, like, you don't have to wonder how Preston's feeling. He wears his heart on his sleeve. His facial expressions are super obvious. I have to work really hard sometimes to keep my face in check, because my reactions, pretty much say anything before my mouth opens. But
Right.
he's the same way. He's always been a very emotional kid. I mean, just very excitable, and so I relate to him and connect with him because we share a similar personality. But then, of course, he's got the male traits that I don't. You just don't ever quite understand as they start to get older, and the bottling up of emotions and all that good stuff. But he's a good kid, and then Rachel, and I think Jesse was kind of an introvert. He likes his circle, always very open and fun loving with his circle, but he was not an extrovert, so he doesn't love crowds or anything. And then Preston and Rachel are a lot like me, and they're very comfortable in crowds. And so they get out, and, in Pueblo West, I'm kind of used to, especially like Bank of the San Juans. I have Terry Boffman is on
I
our...
love her.
Yeah, she should be on your
I
list.
know. She's on my list to reach out to.
So she's on my board of directors, and I've loved getting to know her. And then two of their employees, Amy and Tim, are on our ambassador team. So I'm in and out of there quite a bit. But I walk in there, and people still ask, "Hey, are you Preston's mom?"
Oh, and I'm gonna get that one day. That's another thing we have in common.
Yeah.
I ended up naming my third Preston, and I loved it. And you're like, my son's named Preston. I'm like, I know. I've always loved your son's name, and I'm stilling it.
Yeah, but he's great. I mean, the ladies in there just coo over him because he takes them chocolates when he goes to make a deposit.
Does he take you chocolates when he sees you at work?
No, I don't know what I have to do to get that. But he butters up to them for some reason.
He's doing something right. Ish. He can do a little bit. Preston, if you're listening, bring your mother chocolates to work. It's the right thing to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome for that. So tell me a little bit about Amy. Are you from Pueblo?
I am.
So what high school did you go to? Because that's always the question, right?
I was Southsider, so I went to South High School. I was a South High Colt. Yes. I grew up. Well, we moved around a lot. I think I counted one time. By the time I was 30, I had lived in over 30 homes.
Oh wow.
We moved around a lot, but always in Pueblo until my mom, in high school, she moved to Canyon City and took a job there. And then I moved in with my cousins, with an aunt. She had actually divorced out of the family, but my 4 cousins, who were all boys, were there, and she was remarried and 2 more boys. So for a couple of years, and junior and senior year, and then my first year of college here, we were the only girls, and there were seven boys, men, in that home.
Oh,
but
wow.
Yeah, it was fun, exciting. But yeah, I grew up here, and then, went very briefly just for a semester to Greeley and came back. So
I went to Greeley for 2 years and came back. I did not know that we had that in common.
I didn't either.
Huh. Go Bears.
Yeah.
No.
So yeah, I came back and, been here all my life. I used to leave, in the summers a little bit to go with my aunt. My aunt, who was also my godmother, used to send for me in the summers, and she was going to college and then interning. She's a doctor. She became a psychiatrist, and so I got to go to places like Michigan and Nebraska, Oklahoma, Ohio, some different places with her for the summers, which was a great getaway. But other than that, I've just, summers here and there. I've been in Pueblo most of my life. And
what do you love most about Pueblo? You've been here your whole life. There's something special about it. What would you say it is?
I would say it's always the people for me.
Oh, we have such amazing people, don't we?
We do.
I love this community.
And just briefly, even getting away in the summers, I learned very early on because I think she started sending for me like when I was 7, until maybe I was 13. And I learned very quickly that not everywhere is like Pueblo. I mean, people didn't hold doors for us. They didn't smile and say hi when they encountered you. And still, to this day, even, I go to places like Walmart, and if you come, eye to eye with somebody, there's a smile and a hi, and have no problem asking somebody to, reach something off the top shelf that I might not be tall enough for. But so that's just who we are. And one of my favorite stories to share about Pueblo West, because it just really affirmed to me who we are. I was sitting in line at Dairy Queen a few years ago, and this car was puttering around and obviously dying on the side of the road, had just turned off of Highway 50 onto Purcell, and he jumped out, and he was trying to push his car by himself. It was a teenager, and immediately a couple of people stopped, pulled in around him and stopped and helped him. Somebody came running out of the Wendy's restaurant that was an employee there, and literally within 2 minutes there were people out there helping him. And that just, I hope that never changes here. You can always find people with a smile and a hello, and I just think that we're friendly, helpful people here, and I love that.
Well, tell me something that not everybody knows about Amy.
Oh.
I feel like I know you very well, but what's something I don't know? Put you on the spot.
I don't know, because I am a pretty open book. I mean,
oh, she said it. Speaking of book, haven't you been writing a book?
I have.
What's it called?
It's called Healing Places.
Okay, tell me more about it. When does it come out? Are you finished? All the above?
So I thought I was. I've been writing it, and I thought I was finished, and it is very much about. So one thing that I didn't share about growing up was that I had a stepfather from the time I was about 4.5 to the time I was 12, and he was very abusive, and so I struggled in life, and still sometimes there's things that I'm like, ooh, that's old wiring I have to identify and get rid of. But childhood abuse affects us well into our adulthood, and I know you've been part of some conversations that we've had even at CASA, and that's what drew me to CASA, is that I just have a heart for kids who have been abused or neglected. And I know that even when measures are taken to remove kids from those situations or help heal families or whatever, the implications of childhood abuse are lifelong. And there are a lot of adults walking around who don't understand that the things that hold them back or keep them in unhealthy relationships are still a result of childhood abuse. So I went through that abuse. I was
sorry
a mess.
to hear that, by the way.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I don't.
But it makes you who you are today. Like
Exactly. I think there used to be a lot of whys. Why me? Why? Because I struggled even in my teenage years. What abuse does most to people is it strips you of your self-worth. It strips you of your value. You feel like you're always doing something wrong. You're always looking for love and affirmation that you're not receiving in ways, and usually those are unhealthy ways. You become a people pleaser.
Huh.
Yeah, I know. I heard that, and there's different reasons that you become people pleasers, right? Because I heard Andrea mention that too, and I'm like, I wonder if there's going to be a common link in your influential women here. So I'm going to be curious to listen to that and see if a lot of these influential women used to be people pleasers or have struggled with that in their lives. But I had unhealthy relationships. I used to let people walk all over me, and mostly because I just didn't believe that I deserved better. And,
so what changed?
Well, I don't know that there was any any one thing in particular, except having God in my life. And so this book ends up being very much a spiritual journey for me, and just identifying, because I was just a mess for I mean, definitely even into my adult life, I was a mess, and putting people. I was always put beneath people, so I started putting myself there. And
Do you think that's a woman thing too, that we tend to do that
it
automatically?
certainly does not help, right?
Right?
Because we are the nurturers. I mean, and so many of us, as women especially, have a servant's heart, and you want to serve others, you want to help others, you want to do things, and so yeah, it's anything that would be normal is certainly then just 100 times when there's other issues. And so I started putting myself beneath people, and I would put all of these people on pedestals, and I was lower than them. I went to South High School when I went, and Roncalli was the middle school that I went to, had a lot of wealthy families that attended there. And for a time, after my mom divorced my abuser, my stepfather, we were in low income housing. And so I was I was already kind of beat down. I didn't have any self-esteem, was not outgoing in the least bit. And then on top of that, I was one of the poor kids at a rich school, and
So you had all these factors against you.
right. And so I already put myself beneath people, but some people are happy to put you beneath them too. So that, and there were mean girls. There's always mean girls, right?
So what advice? You were an adult now who went through that child abuse, and you had all these, factors against you. What advice do you have for somebody who's still struggling? That is either currently still struggling with abuse, or, struggling as an adult. It's not happening anymore, but they're held back by certain things. What advice would you give?
Well, the first thing is to be able to identify that's happening. And like I said, I think a lot of adults who went through any type of childhood abuse or childhood trauma don't recognize the fact that they still hold themselves back or are in unhealthy relationships because of some very ingrained belief systems that they have about themselves and about the world and about relationships. So one is to really start identifying what you don't like in your life, what's unhealthy in your life, what if you allowed yourself to dream, who would you be? How would your relationships look? How far would you go? Are you still allowing yourself, even in work environments, are you still allowing yourself to feel less than, or to allow people to make you feel less than? So knowing that that's still happening is one thing, and then you have to do some work, and there's forgiveness of people. There's forgiveness of yourself, because when we're not healthy, we make unhealthy choices too. I can't blame everything that I've been through on somebody else. I mean, I made some really unhealthy choices too because of where I came from, and so I have to own those choices and then do better. And one of my favorite quotes is from Maya Angelou, and it says, "Do your best until you know better, and then when you know better, do better." And I think that's a lifelong thing.
That's a good parent quote too.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
love that. Thanks for
So
sharing.
never stop learning, never stop growing. For me, it was very much a God thing. And I share in my book that I overdosed in college. I was just done with the pain, done with the being held down and held back, and just felt like at that point in my life, nothing was ever going to change or get better for me. I was in a lot of pain, just couldn't see past it. And I overdosed, and I truly believe now that it was God that saved me that day. And that when we start asking why me, it keeps us stuck in that victim stance. And I now, later on, after I've overcome a lot of this stuff and dealt with it, I've very much learned that whatever I go through, and we're going to continue to go through things, and some things are our own fault, and some things are because of the choices of other people, and it impacts you. But now, when I'm going through trials, my question is not, why me, God? It's, okay, what do I need to learn from this? Why is this happening? So that I can understand how to help others. So now I try to learn as much as I can, as quickly as I can, as I'm going through that trial, because I know when I come out of it, it's going to be one more thing that God equips me to help somebody else with.
You're powerful.
Oh,
I love it. I loved all that.
thank
That is
you.
amazing, and that's a great way to look at it, because I think a lot of people do feel victims and they never get out of that victim stage. And so to be able to kind of reverse it and take the positive side, like what you said, how can I learn from this? How can I do better by others? I admire that in so many ways. So
It's a how are you going to use this instead of a why is this happening to me? And I still, sometimes you don't understand why it's happening to you, but I know that if I give it to God, that He will trust me enough that when I'm through it to use it. So that becomes the question afterwards: is how are you going to use this? And then we have to be careful in our busy lives, Jenny, because sometimes we miss opportunities to minister to people and to help people because we're so busy. And so that's kind of a constant prayer for me is for God to show me who He has in my path and why they're in my path. And it's no matter how they're introduced, they may be introduced through a business path, but a lot of times it's not just for business. People are put in your life for reasons, and I don't ever want to miss the opportunity to make a difference in somebody's life if God has put them there for a purpose.
and do you think that's why you got involved in CASA? I didn't know that's why you were involved in, court-appointed special advocates. I had no idea about your past, so thank you for sharing that with me. I'm grateful for that. Why CASA?
Well, that actually started with the magazine. I was invited to an event by Heather and Sean Herman, and it was a dinner. It was a very intimate dinner. It was an event they used to do that they don't do anymore. Ran into Monica there, who was fairly new in her position, and I was doing my magazine, and it was called the In Pueblo. So in addition to ads from local businesses and coupons from local businesses, there was always a section that was my give back, was to donate a section to an organization or a person making a difference in Pueblo. And that was the title of the page, was Making a Difference in Pueblo. So I asked Monica if we could meet, and I wanted to learn more about CASA because that was my first introduction to that, was that dinner. And I knew nothing about it. And I still, it was a very social event, so I didn't get a whole lot of information about who they were, but I could tell what the point of it was. And I was looking for something, I wanted to continue to spotlight a different organization each issue, but I was also looking for an organization that was my charity of focus with that magazine, that got space in every issue. And I always knew, based on my past, that I was looking for something that had to do with either kids or women who had been through abuse. And, the YWCA has always been a very prevalent organization in our community. And even though, we still promoted their events and things like that, I didn't feel like they needed a whole lot of help with exposure about who they were and what they did. And I mean, Chocolate Indulgence was already one of the most
Popular events that they do.
Yes, in Pueblo, like everybody knew about it. And so I wanted to use the magazine and the social media platforms really to help introduce or further expose organizations that weren't heard of. And at that point in time, I was already pretty well versed in a lot of different organizations in the community. I led at that point about 7 different networking groups with lots of different business professionals. And I'm thinking, if I have not heard of Casa of Pueblo, then how many other people in Pueblo have no idea that this organization exists, let alone why they exist and how much good they do. So the more I learned, of course, I very quickly took them on as the charity of focus for the magazine, and they got space in every issue, whether they were looking to recruit volunteers to help their kiddos or they were promoting an event.
I remember reading that spotlight. So
yeah.
Kudos to you for doing that, because I think CASA in those years has definitely made a more community impact by being, more heard of in our community and the services they do. And, CASA is near and dear to my heart as well. And you were the one that first introduced me to Casa. Did you know that?
I think I do remember that.
You asked me to go to the Light of Hope luncheon, and I remember sitting there, and I had no idea what I was getting into. I thought Casa is mi casa, is su casa. Like, I just had no idea. And I remember leaving there bawling my eyes out, like hearing these kids' testimonials of abuse or neglect or whatever. It was just so powerful, and I knew then that I was going to get involved at some point or another. And then, you recruited me to the board, and here we are together.
Yeah, I remember my recruit because we would meet with them quite often on the stories and everything, and they kept saying things and dropping hints, and then finally Zane and Monica sat down and they said, "You're not getting the hints, or you're not taking the hints, so we're just going to lay it out. We want you on the board. Will you please just take a position on the board?" So, yeah, and it's been history. I mean, it feels like I've been on the board for 20 years already. I know it hasn't been that long, but I am the longest standing board member now.
What is it, like 8 years?
Crazy.
How many years?
I don't even remember.
Well, you do amazing work, and I am grateful for you to introduce me to this amazing organization.
Yeah. I'm glad you came on board.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier about your book and, what is your dream have in it? Who is along in it? What dreams do you have moving forward in your life? Right now you're happy with the Greater Chambers, or something else you want to be doing, or what else does Amy Gasperetti dream of?
I'm happy with the Pueblo West Chamber. I'm happy with the Greater Pueblo Chamber, but I don't work there.
Oh, no! Oh, Pueblo. I guess it's just...
You're on the board there.
I know, I am on the board there. My apologies.
Yeah, I do. I love what I do, and I think the best thing about that is everything else. Just being able to make a difference, knowing what you do makes a difference. At the end of the day, is worth its weight in gold. But with the book, I have been also in my spare time. Working on some online classes to get some coaching certifications. Because I just feel like for a long time now, I've felt like God has been calling me to this, to do the book. As I've gone back and I've been adding some things to the book, God was kind of holding my feet to the fire on some things. And so I've gone back and made some additions.
So you're going to let me read it before it comes out?
Okay, sure.
Okay.
And then with that, I think, it's appropriate that there be a workbook because people are working through some of these things. I want to connect with people, because people don't want, when they're struggling with something, they don't want to hear from people who don't know about that struggle, right? I mean, it's like somebody who's lost a spouse to an accident, or so. I can't connect with them a way that somebody else. I can certainly be there for them and empathize, but I can't empathize in a way that I've been there. And I feel like that's when we go through things, we're called to do that, because you can't speak into somebody else's life the way that you can if you've been where they're at. You've felt what they've felt. And, there were times when I was at my lows and I would ask God, why am I this low again? And very quickly the answer started coming so that you can connect with somebody. So when somebody else feels that low, you can say with sincerity that you've been there. And people need to feel connected with. And so I want to connect with people, but I want to give them tools, and I want to show them some of the tools that have helped me. And I'm not a licensed therapist by any means, but I do feel like I've been given a gift and tools through this. And so long term, in addition to kind of a workbook to go with that, and I would like to be able to offer not just coaching, and I don't know if I'll do some one-on-one coaching, but I'd really love to see some support group coaching come out of this, where women can get together and connect with other women who have been there, done that, share their experiences, share where they're still struggling, and be there for each other.
Women, did you hear that? I love that. Women helping others. Will you just say, yes, this is what I'm going to do?
Yes.
Thank you. And so are you waiting for this workbook to be finished before you release the book? I mean, I know you're making some last minute edits, but I'm on the edge of my seat. When is this coming out?
Well, it's, Jenny, I know that you and Andrew talked about this too, the demands on a woman and a mom. And this last year, like I said, the chamber got even busier for us because we had to kind of revamp and pivot and do things differently and help a lot of people. And I found myself working more than I normally do, which is already a lot. So the time that it takes to sit down and just focus on a project of this magnitude, and I don't want to put something out that is subpar. I want to put out a good quality book that is going to help people. I've been working on and off with Gregory Howell because in addition to many of his other talents, I found out that he helps with publishing and editing and things like that. So
what a good man is.
He is. It's time. It's time to focus and really because he has not seen my edits yet. So to do that. But yeah, as soon as I feel like I have the time to sit down, and that's the hardest thing, really is finding the time when I take work home. And I've got a very busy daughter. She's the last one at home, but she is definitely probably the busiest of any of my children she does like 5 different theater classes, and she just started volleyball, and there's a couple nights in a row. We leave our house at 7:15. And other than, coming home to let the dogs in and out really quick, we don't get home until like 10:15 at night.
How do you balance it all? Because you're a single mama. You work a full-time job. You're here and there. You're volunteering. How do you balance it all?
A lot of prayer.
A lot of prayer. Do you have help?
My mom is like your mom is just amazing. And she, God love her, that woman.
I've never met her. When do I get to meet her?
You did. You actually did meet her outside at Over the Edge this last year. She was there with my sister.
That's right.
Yep.
I did meet her.
So when we were growing up, and after she divorced my stepfather, she was a single mom of 3 too, and she took on a lot of debt that he left, and she would work 2 and 3 jobs. She always had her full-time job. And then she would moonlight. She's a registered nurse, and she would moonlight at nursing homes. And then once the home health was up and running, she would take on home health clients. And so now even before retirement, but now especially in retirement, I feel like she's making up for lost time with us as her children, with her grandchildren. And so she is how we get to do things when Rachel has classes right after school. She's the one who's picking her up from school and getting her into classes so that I can be at work. And I do have, I've got some flexibility if I need to leave and stuff to get somebody somewhere. But she's really how that happens, because Rachel, like I said, five different classes at that theater. And then if they're doing a musical, then there's rehearsals on top of the regular classes. And she decided that she loves volleyball too, so...
So it just doesn't end.
No.
It goes on and on.
So I'm going to tell you, just looking... I am in constant conversation. So if you ever see me driving and you see, like I'm talking but not singing to the radio, I'm talking to God. I do talk to myself a little bit, but I am in constant conversation with God. I am in constant request of help me prioritize, help me not to stress about the things that I feel like need to get done but aren't getting done, because there's only so much of me and there's only so much time in a day. So I find a lot of peace and balance in my faith. And then, my circle and essential oils. I lather them on like they...
You're like, I'm going to need extra lavender today. I love it. Well, and you're so busy taking care of everybody else's business, the community. What do you do for you? What do you do for self-care? And why is it important, Amy?
It absolutely is important. And our mutual friend, Dave Garcia, it was eye-opening, because I remember there was a time, and he says, what do you do for you? And I named a few things, and he goes, that's not for you, that's for other people. And so I thought a little bit.
He's so good at that stuff.
Right? I thought a little bit, and I named a few other things, and he goes, this is still for other people. What is for you? And so I do, I am an extrovert, and I love the energy of other people and everything, but I have learned when I need to shut down and kind of, I call it cocooning. And and I just need some time to myself. So, and whether, a lot of times that now is spent on working on the classes that I'm working on, or the book, or what have you. But I love to get a massage when I can. That's probably my favorite bonus in the whole world. So if anybody's ever looking for a gift, or if any of my board of directors is listening and wants to give me a thank you gift or anything, massage gift certificates are always amazing.
There you go. Do you hear that, board?
I haven't had one for about 3 months. It always seems like, I'm like, gosh, has that been that long? And I was just saying, I'm like, I really need a massage. And I just didn't know if it was in the budget. And lo and behold, that very day, somebody came in with a massage gift certificate to Pure Spa.
Aww.
Yeah, so just as a thank you for taking care of some things for them. And so I get to go get them. I need to book that, by the way, but that just reminded me. So I love massages.
Okay, so that's only one out of 3 months.
Right.
So I'm worried about you.
When the weather's nice, I'm very much a fair weather girl. I don't like cold weather, or to be outside in it. But in the warm months, I do like to get out of town and go hiking. There's just something replenishing about being in the mountains, being in nature, being surrounded by green. I get a little bit of that same effect if I can get out to golf, just because you're in the middle of all this green. And
Is your favorite color green?
I don't have a favorite color.
She does not have a favorite color.
I don't have a favorite color. I don't have a favorite. It's always dependent on the moment and the mood and what I'm applying it to. I have my favorite colors to decorate with. I have my favorite colors to wear. I have my favorite colors to be in and around. So there's just, multiples, just like people.
I think you're the first person that's ever told me they didn't have a favorite color, but I love how you used it. So
yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to challenge you to do more self-care, like 20 minutes a day, every day.
Okay. I do have an infrared sauna blanket. So I do use that a few days, right? Okay. Yeah, you'll have to look into that. Okay. When, everything shut down and I couldn't get to the gym, to the infrared sauna in the gym, I found this sauna blanket, and I feel like that's probably a big part of helping keep me sane, because it detoxes you. It relaxes you, it detoxes you. It has the same effects of being in the sauna, but I didn't have space or money to go out and buy one of those things for my house. So, the sauna blanket was and I do. Purchase. It's detoxing and relaxing. I love it.
I've never heard of a sauna blanket, and I love to be warm.
Yeah,
love it. I'm the same. I could do the cold just because we're in Colorado. It's worth the mountains and the beauty we have here. But I like to be in the warmth too.
Yep. So I do that several times a week. I get up at 4, so I'll do that first thing in the morning sometimes, and then I jump in the shower and get ready for my day.
What is your why?
My why is really to serve God. I very much want to get to heaven and not be asked why I didn't take all of these opportunities to help people or to serve him. And I really just want to be the best daughter to him that I can be. And that's, it's bigger. That involves the kind of mom that I am, the kind of sister that I am, the kind of friend that I am, how I serve people in my community. And that's really my biggest overarching why, is just to serve the people in my life and the people that God calls me to serve, and not miss any of those opportunities, because I feel like he's done so much for me. And I mean,
you do it gracefully.
Well, thank you.
You do. You truly do.
Thank you.
And, obviously you're on here because you're an influential woman in many different aspects. Who has inspired you in your life?
A lot of people. One thing I will say about that is, I know that there's some people out there that don't have a lot of good influences in their lives. And one thing I would say is that I have learned, whether people were a good or a bad influence in my life, I learned from that. So there are times when you're like, oh, that's not treating people well. And so I always put myself in that place and say, okay, if I was in this position, this is how. I would handle that. This is how I would treat people. So I try and learn from everybody now, whether I think it's a good example or not. But there have just been a lot of people in my life, and I do, again, God surrounds me by amazing people. Probably the first woman that I remember, other than my aunts and my grandmother, being good influences in my life was my kindergarten teacher, Marty Poole.
Oh.
She accidentally called our chamber the other day just asking for some advice, and now she calls quite frequently, and I just adore helping her. I don't know how much she remembers me, but when I was in kindergarten, my mom had just gotten married, and so things were not happy at home. I was struggling, and I looked forward to seeing that woman every day, and she just loved on all of the kids. Like, there's just something about her, and I will never forget her or how she made people feel, how she made me feel.
Have you ever told
that was
her
my
that?
escape. I have.
Oh, because I feel like the table's reversed now, so that is so cool.
And Heather Poole, her daughter, served on the CASA board when I first joined. So I loved getting to know her, and yeah, just an amazing family. So that's the first person that I remember outside of my family. And there have been people, men and women, and people that I've worked for. I would say, Dave Garcia, again,
Yeah. Oh,
just
absolutely.
always asking those questions that just make you think. And from, taking care of myself to, he was huge when I was going through my divorce. He was working with me at the magazine while he was building his coaching job. And one of the most poignant questions it wasn't even a question, it was just a statement. And this kind of goes back to our self-worth and value and who we are and really knowing who we are. He said, you have to untangle your identity. Mm. And it really, I kept thinking about it. I'm like, gosh, my identity is tied up. And because, whether it was my ex-husband or anybody else that I put on a pedestal above me or allowed to judge me, my sense of value came from what other people would say about me or how other people would treat me, or how I felt like, well, they don't treat me better because I'm not worth being treated better. And that, wow, I mean, he just unleashed, and I used to journal back then too, he just unleashed so many things that were very enlightening to me about what I believed, what I allowed myself to believe and take on from other people. And then, of course, then I had to point myself to God's word. And that is still what I go to. What does God say about me? Who does God say that I am? What does God say that I'm worth? And there was a pastor who I sat with, and I had to work through some forgiveness issues with from the abuse to other people. And I was working through just, forgiveness with my abuser, forgiveness of myself for some bad choices that I had made. And the one thing that I remember him telling me, and I hear it in sermons now quite frequently, is that you are worth what somebody would pay for you. Just like, I mean, we equate it to, let's talk about real estate. What's a house worth? I mean, you can say an appraisal value or whatever, but really a house is worth what somebody will pay for it, right? Mm-hmm. And so we are worth what somebody would pay for us, and God paid for us with his son. And to know that somebody would give their life to pay for you. So that started being the premise of where I put my value and my worth, because I needed to know that I was worth that. Or that I was worth definitely more than I was believing about myself.
And I hear that that's like your foundation. That mm-hmm. is who you are and why you are who you are. Mm-hmm.
So that, really finding your value, and that's, part of what I want to impart to women too through the book, through any support groups or coaching or anything, is really helping them find their value. And we have to look to something that's unshakable. Because as much as I even love my kids, there's days that you're just not on your game or you're stressed or whatever, and they may take my actions or lack of attention or shortness, and I really try to not do it and apologize quickly when I know that I'm doing it. But I I am not infallible. I am not perfect. I am human. And so when we look to things of this world, whether it's people, accomplishments, things that we buy to tell us what our value is, those aren't solid. Like there is only one unchangeable thing that I know of, and that's God and His love for us. So when you stake everything on that instead of what mood somebody's in, and if they feel like being kind to you that day, and it's not that even people would look to be mean to you. It's just maybe they don't have time to tell Amy, you're worth everything in the world today, and that's okay. But we need to know that there's always one person. His mood never changes about us. His love never changes about us. And I do take correction from my father in that way, but you need to know that there's something that never changes. There's somebody that's never, no matter how much you mess up, there's somebody out there that is never going to change his mind about you and would still have gone to the cross for you. And the thing that hit me hardest was when the pastor told me, in all of these years, if you were the only one that Jesus could have ended up saving by going to that cross, he still would have done it. So when you put your value there, that's unshakable.
Absolutely. Amen. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you.
I love you. And I think you would make an amazing coach. Even just sitting here and chatting with you, like, you would give so many people tools in their toolbox that they don't have. I don't know, I think you should put that on your goal list.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And we didn't talk a lot about Rachel, but she's my girl, and I feel we connect on just a different level. And if anybody had tried to impart the wisdom that I try to impart to her at that age, I wouldn't have known where they were coming from. But one of the things that we talk about is she struggles in her teenagehood. She's 14 going on 15. And so, we start to really get into the social dilemmas and things like that. And so one thing that we really talk about are circles. And this is something, again, took me, I didn't really understand this until I was like 45 years old. And so I try to share with her those things. And that's something that she now talks to other people about. And
Aww.
I put it to her because she's like, well, Mom, I've known this person since I was in kindergarten, and I really love her, but I can't trust her, and she keeps betraying me. But I don't want to end my friendship with her. And so we started talking about circles. And recently, I told her, you have your core circle. And what I've learned, and would want to share with people, just hoping that it helps, is that you have a core group of people. And I have made the mistake of allowing people who didn't belong in my core group of people into my core group of people, and it's bit me. And what I've learned now is the people that you allow into that core group need to be people who share foundational values with you.
Values, yeah.
They need to have the same belief systems. They need to have the same foundational values. And it's only a few people that end up being in that core all the time. And what I have found is, even though we like to say in our job interviews, yes, I take constructive criticism well, that's a lie for most people. And here's why. Because unless you truly respect somebody at that foundational level and know where they're coming from, what they believe, and it's what you believe, you don't give them that much credibility.
Respect, right, yeah.
Yeah. Because, if my boss came to me and talked to me about how I was acting, but I knew she was cheating on her spouse, like, who are you to talk to me about values and how I'm presenting myself when you're out doing this, right? So the people who share your core values are the people that you are going to allow that intimacy to speak into your life. And we need people.
Who is in your circle?
I'm
curious.
Most people who know me know, Jenna Pasolacqua is one of my best friends. Lori Ariano is one of my best friends.
I love both of them.
And Ladoris Burton. Has become, just a fast friend over the last few years.
She's
and
a sweetheart.
is kind of a mentor in ministry to me. And those people, I don't bow up against or dismiss or anything. If Ladoris comes and sits down and says, I feel like I need to really tell you something. I feel like you need to hear this, and I see this happening, and it's not, if somebody's going to tell you that you're not going down a good path, or you've allowed somebody into your life that they just don't have a good feeling about, there's only a few people that you're really going to take that information from and digest it and pray about it and things like that. So your core group of people really need to have those foundational values. And then you can have your friends, and then you can have, you can just have circles, and you can have as many circles as you want, and you get to decide. And you don't have to tell somebody like, hey, you're in my 7th circle. Right. Nobody has to know, but I told my daughter, so
I'm not in the core circle, but I'm in one of the circles, right? Which I'm good with. Yeah. I get it. Absolutely. And I would say, having a life coach has helped you. And I Dave gave me the same analogy, but it was a bus. He was like, who's on your bus?
Exactly.
And so you can have, a car and a truck, but just kind of a different analogy. And at the time it was hard because there's people on my bus, like you said, shouldn't have been on my bus.
Right.
And it's okay to move on, and it's still okay to put them in another vehicle, but you got to find people who are your tribe, and who are you, and who is your reflection. And
and you can put them on another bus, and you can wish them well.
Right.
I mean, act like you're wishing they're getting an accident or anything. You just wish them well. They just don't belong on your bus. Yeah. I use that one too, especially when it comes to the special seats. Right. Yeah. So, and that's when it comes to your core, and especially your partner, right? Like that's one seat. That there's availability for one seat for your life partner. Yeah. So those requirements for that seat have to be high, because you only get to fill it with one person, or you should only fill it with one person, let's say. But I heard a sermon recently, and I loved the sermon because they were talking about the same thing. But he said you've got the crowd, you've got your crew, and you've got your core. And he said, if you look at the life, even in Jesus' life, he had the crowd, he had the crew, and he had his core. So
I've never heard of that analogy. That's
when fantastic. I was giving advice, I didn't know that it was biblical too.
Look at you go. Okay, speaking of choir and a band, what song represents you? Like, if you had to pick one song and be like, this is my jam, this represents me, what would that be?
I don't think I have one. I connect and relate to a lot of songs, and I listen to things that speak to me in the moment. And I love music for that reason, because it does, whether you just like to sing along to it or it's just really speaking to you in the moment. I don't know that I have one. There's times I listen to a lot of everything. I have everything from the Oak Ridge Boys to
Oak Ridge Boys. Yeah. Oh, I've been to one of those concerts with my grandma.
To the Scorpions on my, 80s. I love 80s. I do listen to a lot of contemporary Christian music, and when I'm listening for things to speak into my life, that's typically where I go. And
me too. When I drive my mom's car, if we need to switch, she always has her, I call it her Jesus CD. Mm-hmm. Oh, and I love when I'm in her car, because I will rock it out. I turn it up on full blast and just get it. So I get you there. It's just...
Yep. So yeah, there's things, there was a song when I was really struggling, and in one of my low points that said, some days you give me just enough strength to breathe. And that made it okay just to get through the day breathing, and some days that needs to be enough. Mm-hmm. When you're just really struggling and working through something, and, now there's, I listened to songs about, just, fear, you don't own me. And there's, those lyrics, I'm like, yeah.
Isn't it crazy how lyrics just talk to us?
Right. And so now, I'm just in very much of this, empowered state, and I let things go easier. I let people go easier. And I don't mean to say that in a sense, because I still love people. I still pray for them, whether they're in my life or not. And some people you have to learn to love from a distance, but I have learned boundaries, and I have learned to love people from a distance when they're toxic, when they want to. Big thing for me is anybody who comes into my life and wants to control me. I won't let that happen again. So I've had a little too much of that from people to the fear of what would happen if I let people go. But that's, I don't let people control me. I don't let fear control me. And so I've just in the state of empowerment where I'm very particular about the people that I allow in my life to speak into my life. And I don't let things or people go in anger anymore. It's just letting go, and
And
it's
being
in a
okay
very
with it, like
healthy
being
way.
at peace at it. It almost makes it easier.
Yep.
So, you are a very influential woman in this community, and, you've taken many steps to get where you are today. A younger version of yourself, or, another young lady who's getting ready to, start making those career choices and wants to be a successful woman leader, what advice would you give them?
Not to be afraid to reach out to the women in this community or a woman in this community that you think would be helpful. Again, one of the great things about Pueblo is that I feel like people are very helpful. And whether you want some direction or some advice or you want to job shadow somebody, I just talked about this in a junior achievement interview. But just to be bold and ask because people are very helpful. And if you get a no, ask somebody else or ask them who else might have time to talk to you. Because that's, it's such a general question and a broad question that until you get to have a one-on-one conversation with somebody, you don't know, what questions they have, what help they need, what they may need to overcome or need to know to get to where they're going. So don't be afraid to have those conversations. I remember when I started in business, I always say my first grown up wear pantyhose job was with it was Express Personnel at the time. Now it's Express Pros, but my job was to go out and start networking. Well, I came from a family mostly of nurses, and not a lot of extroverted people, nobody in business, and I didn't know anybody. And I had to go out and attend these mixers and things like that, and it didn't feel welcoming to me. I felt very shut out. I wanted to be like the people in that room, networking and talking to everybody in the room, what you would call work in the room now, and everything. And I was so intimidated. I didn't know anybody, and that would have been really helpful to have a business professional or somebody, who would take you under their wing and start
Let 'em
introducing.
tag you along.
Absolutely,
I've
start
been doing
introducing
that with my
people.
little Mia.
Yep.
She's like, I took her to the chamber luncheon last week or a couple weeks ago, and she goes, "That was so socially awkward for me. Like, I don't do good in those situations, so I was glad that I had you with me."
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah.
Great advice.
We all need to be taken under. I mean, and somebody like, your kids, they're not going to have any trouble because they're in and around people all the time. They're growing up like that. But for somebody who hasn't grown up in that environment, or with a family with those type of connections, like I feel like, again, another calling that we kind of owe it to these girls to be
Absolutely.
that for them.
So you talk about shadowing another woman. Who's somebody that you would like to shadow? Dead or alive, and why?
I don't know. I'm not. I don't really have any celebrities or anything that I would.
Doesn't even have to be a celebrity.
If it was somebody in this community, just for the pure fun and the fact that she is always positive, always a cheerleader, always, she's solution oriented. Like I try to be, I'd probably, if I had to pick somebody in this community to follow around all day, it'd probably be Terry Boffman.
Oh, isn't she a good time? And she always is so stinking cute with all of her accessories.
Yeah. I'd have to get some new clothes to follow her around because I can't keep up with that.
Well,
with
you
that
should
lady,
do that.
But
I love that. And what about outside of our community?
I don't know, Jenny. There's lots of people that, obviously Beth Moore.
Who is that?
Beth Moore is, she does a lot of Bible studies, Bible teaching, maybe Priscilla Shirer. Another one, she's in the War Room and Overcomer. But they are Christian women, Christian leaders. they lead Bible studies, but they're very prominent. And that's something else that and I don't know in this day and age if that's a possibility, but I would love to public speak about some of this stuff and just be.
Well, we have a stage here at Wake Up.
There you
go. We have a theater.
Just want to be an encourager to people who are discouraged. And so those women embody that. They love Jesus and they love to encourage. They're very, they'll encourage anybody, but they're very focused on women and uplifting women and loving on Jesus. And so I guess, outside of this community, those would be the women that I would reach out to.
I love it. So are you going to reach out to them? Especially once your book and your workbook is done. Right, wouldn't that be a good day to just say, you know what, I'm gonna do my own advice. And I'm going to reach out to them and just see if I could do that. And then who knows what would lead from there.
Right. It'd be great if I could have them look at my book before I publish it and let me know if I'm on the right track.
Well, send it to them.
They've written a lot, right?
Why wouldn't you send it to them?
Yeah, maybe I should.
Why not?
Good advice, Jenny. Thanks.
Well, and then maybe they would endorse it.
Hey.
Right? Do you have somebody who's endorsed your book yet?
No, not yet.
So say, hey, you've always been a role model. This book, I feel like, is right up your alley, and ask them to endorse it.
Okay.
And then when you become famous, I get the first autograph of your book.
Okay.
Okay. Is that fair?
That's fair.
That's fair. Oh, Miss Amy, I love you.
Thank you for having me on. I don't, you talk about this. I don't consider myself an influential woman.
Oh, stop it. Stop being humbled.
You're
an amazing human being, and I'm blessed to know you in my life, and so are many others. And
thank you.
Yeah.
Just go out there and do what we do, right? And hope that it helps people.
So what does the word influence mean to you?
Ooh, I should have been prepared for this. I heard you ask Andrea this.
It's my one question I ask at the end of every podcast.
Yeah, well, and we know that there can be good influence and bad influence, so I'm going to go with the good influence because that's the premise of why you're doing this, right? So that you can have people who are good influences on here. Gosh, I don't know how to describe it without using the word influence, but impact maybe. To do things and be a person that has a positive impact on your community, on the people around you, the people that are watching you that you don't know are watching you sometimes. That always amazes me, by the way, when somebody will say something and I'm like, I never, they never comment on anything. They never talk to you. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, these things that you say really, really touch me or help me or whatever. So I guess just being an influential woman should mean that you, in how you live your life, personally and professionally, because I don't believe that there's a difference. You are who you are, and your character dictates that.
Absolutely.
That the way you live your life, the things you choose to say, and how you encounter people leaves a positive impact on their lives.
Amy Gasperetti, you've made a huge impact on my life and many others, and just thank you for your gracious heart, how you live with grace, and just being there. So that's a wrap on today's episode of Influential Women. Amy Gasperetti, thank you for my special guest.
Thank you.